Welcome to Fire Your Doctor, episode
41.
41, I'm told, with your host, Dr. Daniel Lockwood.
And Richard Lockwood. Hello.
Hey,
How are you?
tired.
Yeah, we're doing a night
Oh, I actually liked night shift.
shift.
It was awesome.
Doing a night shift tonight.
Yeah, you just get to do your work. You don't have to deal with all the less drama. Yeah.
I'm an early bird, which also, if you're up early enough, you don't have to
You'll
deal
meet
with
your
the
night
drama.
shift people.
And you'll say hello to night shift people as you're coming in, chipper as a little bird. I'm typically heading downhill by now because I'll get up early. So we're going to talk about fix your marriage before it fixes you. Spicy.
Sounds fun.
So we finished up the main part of the series, which is the Reclaim Your Bedroom series. It was the last 5 episodes that we did. But we just thought we needed like one more episode that really started talking about the leadership aspects and the dynamics between husband and wife. So we're going to talk about covenant, we're going to talk about leadership and the responsibility of love. That doesn't sound fun, but I would say when the structure is in the right order within a marriage, then fun can happen easier. What do you say, Mr. Lockwood?
I think that all of the unsexy details about life leave room for spontaneity.
You have to have the structure in order to have the art.
Right, meaning you're not going to have time for that spontaneous moment if you're too busy foraging out in the woods for food because you're starving to death and you don't have any shelter. So it's like there's not a lot of spontaneity and joy in that.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, we have shelter, we have our needs met.
Can you scoot closer to me?
Oh.
I just want to be close to you.
You want to show me off to all your friends on this podcast?
I just wanted you in frame, but I'm okay being close to you too. All right.
Well, you'll get your wish.
So the last few episodes, I'm going to give you just a quick recap. We talked about hormones, both male and female. We talked about stress and exhaustion. We talked about communication. We talked about desire differences between men and women. We talked about the nervous system and intimacy. We talked about honesty in marriage. And ultimately, we didn't really talk about the structure of marriage. And so we're going to talk about that. So marriage is a covenant structure. If the structure weakens, intimacy begins to break down. And if that structure is restored, we'll often see that intimacy will follow. So first of all, what is a covenant? Can you say the difference between like a contract versus a covenant?
Contracts are generally going to be transactional. By that, I mean that you would be kind of keeping score. Like, okay, I have provided one home-cooked meal, and for that, I require as consideration 1 electric bill paid. And, or you could even look at that as far as like physical affection or this or that. And if you're looking in a marriage as far as transactional, you can go from something that could be very beautiful to something that is just demeaning to the point of, I mean, the world's oldest profession. I don't know how I say it. I was trying to be gentle here, but yeah, you could take something that's supposed to be sacred and take it to the exact opposite of that and make it something that's very cursed.
Yeah. That being said, in marriage, at least how it stands in where we are from, the United States, it's a big deal. It is a business relationship as well. You will share assets.
Covenants are very business.
Yes. You will share assets. You will share finances. You will share custody. Like there's all sorts of entanglements with that. So yes, it is a contract, but it is a covenant.
Right. I would say covenant is more ongoing. And it's more like a guiding framework. And so you would see things like good faith in kind of a covenant, whereas a contract would be like, I was supposed to pay $100 and I paid you $100. Like we're done. Whereas a covenant would be ongoing.
So it's more like a tit for tat kind of thing.
In a contract, yeah.
In a contract. You said this, I expect this to be provided. I listened to this podcast and he was a divorce lawyer and he was talking about the different prenuptial agreements that he has had to write over the years and how specific they were for you will have sex, X number times a week. You will weigh this much. You won't gain weight. Like
Mm.
just very specific outlines of expectations, but in a legal document, meaning if you do gain weight or if you did do this or if you broke this, that in the case of a divorce,
You would
you'd
forfeit.
forfeit your money. I mean, crazy stuff.
Kind of.
Yeah.
I guess that, but when you're looking at that though, there is this way that you go out on a you go on a date with a man and like he's got a nice car or a nice truck and it's on credit. You know what I mean? And that girl like decided it was time to get a husband and the first thing she did was lose 25 pounds and as soon as the ring's on, she gains the 25 pounds. And so there is kind of this way that people will on men and women both will kind of just give everything just kind of a little nudge up and if that became egregious, there could become a point where someone could rightfully feel like, well, hey, as soon as you got me nailed down, you're not really who you made yourself out to be, and I do feel a little bit betrayed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yet you were, I just love outdoors and hiking and being fit all the time, and 3 years into marriage, and then that's not who that person is anymore. I don't know. I mean, a prenup with like a scale attached to it sounds ugly, but so does somebody like lying about their entire identity.
Mm.
So that's where you get into problems with like things like covenants. So on the one side, a man presumably completely transactionalizing this prenup of like, I expect you to do this and I expect you to have sex with me, all this, and like stay like wearing this size pants or something that seems really ugly. But the converse of that, of somebody that's like, I'm just living my best life every day. Nothing's more important to me than being fit and happy and everything. And the guy marries her and she's not fit or happy anymore. So I guess either side of that you were talking about earlier off camera about feeling like you could fall off the edge of the cliff in either direction. I think that on one side would be death by order and the other would be death by just kind of like chaos, like just letting it go.
So you had shared on the last episode this analogy of marriage like a city. And I think it was really good. I just want it to be flushed out a little bit more. So
Yeah.
I feel like this particular analogy is a better version of kind of walking that middle ground. Like you do obviously in a marriage have expectations of what is going to happen. There's negotiations that are happening. However, there's an understanding of an order, and that order is it just leads to a lot more peace in the household if people fall under that order, I feel, in a
Well,
marriage.
and even talking about a covenant, there are like legal covenants, say a lot of times in like real estate law, where you would have like you're required if you want to own a house in this neighborhood to like keep your lawn mowed. Are they going to be out there with a tape measure like if you're one day late? Like
Maybe.
it depends on the neighborhood. Some
Depends on the
covenants are
neighborhood.
super strict, but some are just like just keep it respectful, guys. And I think that the best covenants are kind of organic like that.
Yes.
But
Well,
yeah,
as Christians, our covenant is between husband and wife and God, so that there is always that third entity within the relationship, meaning that we both have to answer to God.
yeah. Yeah, like, if I got married, the day after I get married, I'm like, "Well, it's time to go start doing hard drugs." The Bible doesn't say, "Don't do this drug," because it didn't exist in Bible time, so here we go, I'm gonna go do that. Like, at some point, I would be maybe not violating a specific verse in the Bible, but I would be very much violating the spirit of a covenant that you made before God. And so I think that's like also something when you start looking at covenants, you start getting into intent and acting in good faith and things like that.
Yeah. So this actually,
Marriage is a city.
yeah, this became an analogy because I think it came up because it was like, well, the wife gives up her name, and
Yeah.
husbands don't give up their names. They just keep their name their whole life.
Yeah.
And then you were like, well, we do give out our name, and this is
Yeah.
what that looks like. And so I'm going to let you take the lead on describing that.
Okay. Yeah. I think it was actually the first analogy was marriage as a country. and it's like you're joining a country. Okay, so in pop culture, this gets a really bad rap because being part of a country you have responsibilities. In some countries, maybe you could get drafted in the military. There's countries where men and women, both in the event of a disaster or some type of situation, could be called up to some sort of military type service.
Like, I think in Israel, it's
Yeah.
required for every
Yeah.
man to serve 2 years
Some
in the
places are men and
military.
women. In Germany, I think it's men and women. Like women,
Oh,
don't quote me on that, but I think there's a lot of countries that are. Okay. So in pop culture, marriage and specifically masculine headship in marriage gets a really bad rap because most people tend to focus on what a woman would be giving up. It's like, well, like headship, what does that even mean? Now you have to answer to this man. I answer to no man. This is terrible. And it's like, well, wait a minute. Sure, there are responsibilities. There's responsibilities to being an American or any other, member of a country. And participation of every citizen in that social contract is what makes a country work. Like if I decide, hey, you know what, I liked England better, nobody can tell me what side of the road I'm going to drive on, and I start driving on the wrong side of the road, I'm going to cause a crash and kill people. Right? There are things in our social contract that we just don't do in America. It's like this is what we do. So marriage as a country,
so the country requires.
their country is going to require things. It's going to require some sort of like, it's kind of a medieval term, but fealty, meaning that you are going to have to pledge allegiance to that country. You're going to have to be faithful to that country. You're going to have to obey, that country's kind of like rule of law, that country's social contract. What side of the road do we drive on? What kind of things are we doing? How do we do things in this country? There's things that are legal in America that aren't legal in other places and vice versa. And so what that means is that when you get married and you take a husband's name, there's certain things that you're going to have to like do to be a part of his society. But in return, now that all sounds like, oh, this sucks. In return, what would a good country provide? A good country is going to provide protection, stability, covering, and more than that, it's going to become a name. And a name is like very symbolic because like, I have a ring, but my wife also wears my ring too. Oh, it's focusing. The camera is focusing. So when my wife is wearing my ring and going out and about in my name, she has a complete claim on me, meaning she can act in the authority of me and my household. Right? Now, this might sound kind of weird, but in a world where we have, for lack of a better term, casual sexual encounters where women have dated men for years, lived with them, even born them children. And then the man's like, I don't know, I don't like you anymore. I'm out. Like there's men that just kind of move out and it's like years long relationships end with a text message at best and there's literally nothing. There's
Mhm.
nothing. There's no trace. There's no legal. There's no anything. It's just like, oh yeah, I saw some other chicks. Sorry. And so, as a married woman, as you being married to me, it's like you are going with my name.
Mhm.
And so it's like, and by that point, you have a claim of ownership on me, right? And so there's a vice versa. And so a good country is going to provide protection, safety, structure, and all these things. And when we look at it,
Provision,
provision, right?
order,
Order,
leadership.
leadership, and then a good country doesn't just come with responsibilities. It's not like I'm like, well, you owe me taxes and you owe me this and you better drive on the right side of the road. You better do what I say. A good country also has a Bill of Rights. There's this Bible story where Paul gets beaten for speaking out in this one city. And then he's like, oh, by the way, before you government officials beat me, did you know that I was a Roman citizen?
They're
And all of a,
like, "Oh,
and all of a
no."
sudden the magistrate gets in trouble. It's because like, wait a minute, Roman citizens have rights. You can't just you can't just do that. And so when we look at the American Constitution and the starting of our country here in America, one of the biggest things that we wanted the right to was redress of grievances.
Mm,
What does that mean? It means that like if you don't like something, then you have a chance to be heard. And so it's like so I think there's this understanding, there's this not understanding, there's this extremization kind of thing where covenant And marriage, and particularly masculine headship in a marriage, is viewed as the absolute worst case scenario. So it's like, well, I live in North Korea and everybody's starving to death. And if you say the wrong thing, you're going to get executed. And this is just every day is just this drudge. And it's like, yeah, well, what if you lived in a really wealthy country where you had a lot of rights and you had provision and protection, you had excellent roads, you had good schools, good infrastructure, and there was a base level of order provided that actually gave you more freedom? Because complete freedom could be like, hey, let's all just go out into the desert and we'd have zero anything. I'm completely free to go die. You know what I mean? But participation in a society that's like, it's going to have a social contract. There's things that you can't do.
Yeah, so this comes with if the country becomes unsafe or chaotic, the citizens suffer. So who's in the kingdom in this analogy? It would be your wife, but also
Yeah.
your children as well become citizens of that country as
Yeah.
well, right?
Yeah. And then what's your role? And there's this kind of way when you start looking at a family unit as a nation state that the husband almost acts as like a head of state for external affairs, if that makes sense, meaning he is like a figurehead. He's doing kind of like interstate, kind of like, or not interstate, but like kind of like the international kind of trade. But when you actually look at like the actual running of inside the house and things like that, a lot of times, even in very traditional societies, it's the wife that is really, I mean, for lack of a better terms, kind of running things.
Mhm.
And so when you start looking at it that way, in a lot of traditional cultures, like Middle Eastern cultures, the husband's this figurehead, and he's kind of providing, protecting, like doing that thing, kind of forward facing. But when it comes to like household decisions, it's like, I mean, the wife is kind of like that's her domain, and the husband just kind of lets her do what she wants.
So that's good. I like that. In the same way, the emotional and relational climate of a marriage is heavily influenced by the tone and the leadership of the husband. So this doesn't automatically mean domination or control. It means responsibility and stewardship. And so a good leader will create safety, stability, clarity, peace. And when something goes wrong, the leader does not blame the citizens. He takes responsibility for the health of the country.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, leadership is taking responsibility. I think there's also this way that, speaking of taking responsibility, there's sometimes that people will want things that just can't coexist. For example, a man might want sexual variety, but also want the safety of a marriage. And it's like, well, you can't really have that at the same time because one will destroy the other. It is what it is. And what was it? It was an old Tony Robbins clip that I saw, and we were kind of talking about this. I was thinking about this, and all of a sudden it came up. But it said, like, he asked the audience, he polled the audience, like, women, how many of you find indecisive, wishy-washy men attractive? And it was like nobody. It's just like, that's right. And he was like, you want men that are decisive, that know what they want, that they have a mission in life, they have purpose, they have drive, they're confident. And then like all the hands go up. And he's like, well, you know what the problem is that a decisive man isn't always going to make decisions that you agree with. And then all of a sudden the room gets quiet.
He
And
groans.
just like the man has to kind of like honestly die to the desire to have any number of sexual partners, and you can just kind of, okay, well, that opportunity is over when he gets married, if he wants to have a healthy marriage and keep that marriage. In the same way, the woman has to kind of submit that desire to have this strong, decisive, he knows what he wants and he's going to go get it, and this man that really knows who he is, and all that. You can't really have that and always get your way. And
True.
so two of those trains on the collision course, one of them has to yield to the other.
Oh, yeah. That's true. That's very true.
There's plenty of indecisive men,
Yeah.
weak-willed, indecisive men. Like if that's just where somebody's at, and a
There's
woman,
also plenty of
she can go get
rebellious
that.
women who are stubborn.
That's
I
true.
can be one of those women
That's true.
for sure. I'll
That's
admit
true.
it.
But ultimately, are you going to be happy with that? Because this is the irony, though, is like, I think for the feminine, there's kind of this desire for almost that like tension where it's like, you don't always get your way, but you kind of get your way sometimes, but there's kind of a balance and it's intriguing to you.
Yeah, that's true. It's why.
Yeah.
Why are we like that?
I don't know, you just are. But I mean, so if it was like North Korea kind of like, and just this is just terrible, I never get anything I want, and I'm
And
just paying all
and
this taxes.
we've heard stories
Yeah.
about men who act like children and throw tantrums. And, "Wah!" The kids and the wife are walking or like feel like they're walking on eggshells all the time
Yeah.
to make sure that this man is pleased and appeased.
But what's
And we've
funny,
seen that. We've
what's
seen it, we've heard it, we know it.
the tantrums and that whole kind of thing, it almost goes back to that regression. It's almost like the same as like the kind of the overly passive. It's like a different flavor of the same thing because you're both like both of those would be examples of like if you were just if you have headship and you know what you want, then you shouldn't have to like throw tantrums and fits. Tantrums and fit are what a child does when it doesn't get its way. And so throwing a tantrum is automatically putting your wife in that kind of mother kind of role. Just in the same way that somebody that's passive is like, okay, where's my peanut butter sandwich? It's 3 p.m. I got home from school. Mom's going to make me a sandwich. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And so tantrums and passivity are both putting your wife in that mothering role, which incidentally, a lot of women can snap into that role. But actually, I didn't know we were talking about sexual attraction, but putting your wife in that mothering role would kill her attraction to you sexually.
Yep.
And so the tantrums, it's like my little boy is throwing a tantrum, kind of this servile, just kind of yes man attitude is, oh, well, my little boy is trying to get me to buy him a new bike.
Mhm.
But either way, it's not really decisive, and I know what I want in my life.
Yeah, and then it changes the dynamic between husband and wife. It changes it to now I'm mothering 24/7
Yeah,
because I'm mothering my children, and
yeah,
then I'm mothering my
yeah,
husband who's acting like a child all the time.
yeah, yeah. So the kind of tantrums and kind of things like that.
Or like
Sometimes
telling men to get off video games, like,
he'll be done when he's done. Okay.
yeah, and just like that whole thing. It really creates I have a lot of
Well,
empathy for that, like with people. If you don't you're not a video gamer, but I'm just saying, like, there are men who are just addicted to video games. And maybe they're addicted to video games because it's a numbing action. Maybe they're addicted to it because that's their only sense of adventure. They feel trapped. They're not fulfilled in some way.
I
It's
think
just
part of
fun
it's
to zone out. Like, I don't know. But when you were saying that analogy about the wife acting like the mother, it's like I've
uh,
heard stories where they're yelling at their teenage son and their husband to get off the video games and like be present, you know?
video games are a tough one because on the one hand, it's like men weren't really built for this world. It's like you go to a desk job, you drive a minivan, and you kind of live this lifestyle that's not a life of challenge and adventure, right?
Mm,
And where are you going to live that out? It's like a couple hundred years ago, we were Viking warriors and doing cool stuff.
well, I don't know about the whole rape and pillaging things, but,
At least you got a
something.
boat and a sword.
But
But
let's actually to that point, that leads to the next thing we're
but
gonna
I would
talk.
say, but so like let's like just give me one more here.
Okay.
Okay. So like the man who's playing video games, on the one hand, it's like, okay, sure, he can be present for the family. On the other hand, it's like maybe he sold the race car, he sold the motorcycle. He doesn't have a season pass to Mount Hood Meadows to go skiing and snowboarding anymore. And like so he has laid down all of the things that would have been passionate and fulfilling and like adventurous for him because he has a wife, he has a family, he has a responsibility. And now this is kind of like his kind of cope and his wife is like, "Well, you better give that up too, because that's stupid. And why are you doing that?" And so it's like, sure, don't just be addicted to video games, but at the same time, have some empathy when you look at this, because the guy playing video games is probably a guy that can't doesn't have the opportunity or the lifestyle or the money to actually go get a real race car or to go buy a real gun and go shooting and do those things.
Yeah.
And so there's a little bit of compassion that we could have on that guy too.
Okay. That's the other side of the
I had a lot of race cars and stuff before I was
yeah.
married.
I helped you buy things for your race
I
cars.
know. I'm just saying like that there's two sides to that.
Yeah.
There's two sides to that.
Okay. Benevolent leadership. Modern culture often reacts strongly to the idea of male leadership in marriage, but biblical leadership is not authoritarian. It's actually sacrificial leadership.
Okay.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
Well, and it's kind of what you just talked about. It's like you're going to have to give up some of the things that are maybe really cool. I was thinking about that person that we saw at a race one time, and he just spent, I mean, so much money on this race car and was willing to, like, live on a couch to, like, buy stuff for this race car, and his
Oh,
wife was just like,
yeah, newly married.
"See me." We're just like, I he loves that race
Okay.
car more than he loves her, like, what
Yeah.
is happening? So there is a balance, but the
Yeah.
sacrificial leadership is about service, protection, responsibility, and humility. This is what the Bible says, and a husband's leadership should make his wife feel safe and calm and more supported and emotionally secure. And you talked about this in a previous episode when you were talking about how you created or you try to create a walled garden for me. You know, you create this safety so that I can live out and grow my things, grow my practice and grow, I don't know, grow
Yeah,
children and all the little not little, but things that I do, you try to be that
that's true.
security, physical labor,
Yeah.
reason, wisdom, you know. And when women feel safe, her nervous system will relax. And when nervous system relaxes, intimacy becomes much easier.
I wouldn't say nervous system always relaxes. I would say nervous system expresses.
Okay, yeah, I like that. But
Well,
explain to the audience what that means. I understand what you mean. Sometimes it needs to come out of them. Like,
yeah, like, I guess what I mean is women are like weather. And
okay,
so when you're like, "What's it like in the Pacific Northwest?" And you're like, "Well, it's rainy." And it's like, "Well, it's not always rainy. Some days it's absolutely stunning and beautiful, and there's lush green plants everywhere, and we live in this tropical paradise. Other days it's 39.5 degrees and raining sideways, and there's tree branches and pine needles and on the ground, and it's just terrible."
that's where we're at right now.
And so I would say, like, women are like weather, and there's a certain amount of feminine expression that can only come out when you're in and kind of under the covering of a man that you know won't leave you even if your ugly comes out. So we were talking about benefits of kind of having that covering and kind of like living in that country and having my name is the bond between you and I is deeper than just some girl I'm talking to at a bar. And so you would get free reign of expression that you wouldn't really get in that other context. So
Yeah,
it's just like, I'm sad, I'm scared, I'm angry. Like maybe you're just angry and you don't know why. And so I'm the nearest thing and you're angry at me sometime. And it's like, do I have the strength of character to like kind of stand up under that? And that in itself is a freedom too, of just like, you know what, I had a bad day and whatever. And I appreciate that you don't take liberties with that, and, like, sometimes you do, you come back to me and you're like, "Hey, you know what? I'm sorry I was short with you the other day. That's not really how I wanna treat you," and I'm like, "You know what? Like, thanks for saying that. It means a lot to me." And it does. And so I think there's times that you could take too much license with that, but when you were saying, like, freedom and kind of that thing, like, what did that look like? It's like those are things that can only come out when you feel, like, really safe. Now, you've been in other relationships potentially where you were always, like, threatened that the relationship could be over.
yeah,
Like, if I don't always look and act and be perfect, like, well, this guy's just gonna dump me, right? And then that can be kind of a way that you're just always kind of performing. And that could be a relationship maybe that's even completely out of covenant. Like there's no covenant, there's no ring, there's no marriage, there's no anything. And so it's like this thing that's supposed to be, I'm a strong, independent woman and I don't want to be under anybody's covering. Like all of a sudden, it's like not having that covering actually results in a lived experience that is far less free
yeah,
because it's like you don't have the title,
exactly.
like the title, like of ownership. It's like, no, this ain't a rental. I own this car. The bank ain't coming to get it because it's paid for.
It's paid.
And so there's a way that marriage is like that, where it's just like, no, you can't just take my car. It's paid for.
I have a little joke just to add some
Uh,
levity.
alright.
Remember we were talking about getting a boat and then
Oh, yeah.
the boat is gonna be paid off.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
Paid off like a congressman.
Oh, goodness. Okay, so covenant versus contract, one of the biggest differences between modern relationships and biblical marriage is the difference between contracts and covenants. So we're going to circle back around on that. A contract says, I stay as long as my needs are met. A covenant says, I stay because I gave my word. Marriage was never meant to be sustained by feelings alone. It's sustained by commitment and character. Ironically, when the covenant stability exists, love often deepens over time.
That's true.
Yeah, like
True.
that is a good summary. And with marriage, we're choosing to wake up every day and be married.
Yeah.
You choose it every day. You get up every day. You choose to make time to schedule dates. You choose to make time to schedule intimacy.
Yeah.
I said, this is not my quote, but I love it. Hope is not a strategy. I hope I'll have time to be intimate. I hope I'll have time to see my husband. I hope I will have time to go hang out with my kids. No, everything has to be scheduled. And
Mhm.
the strategy is make time for those things because you make time for the things that you prioritize.
There's a way that you can also that marriage is also like a ministry, and you can really speak into somebody in just a very deep way. Like, I guess I'm thinking, like, specifically, like, sometimes there's times where you're just like, where I don't know, I was kinda evening, the kids are in bed, and you just kinda come to me and you say, "Hey, you know what? Like, I know you're a man and you have needs, like, and I'm here to meet those, like," and I was like, "Yeah, but, you're tired, and I can tell you had a long week," and just things like that, and you're like, "I just wanna do this for you because I love you." And I think that there's a way that you can just express, like, a level of, like, tenderness and care for the other person, even when it's not something that you're necessarily like, "This is exactly what I wanna do right now." There's a vulnerability in that, and, like, a seeing the other person make that effort, even though it might not be, you know, like, their first choice. And, there's times that you do stuff like that for me, and I appreciate it, and it really speaks to me. And it's like that's like one of those things where it's just like, "All right, blood's thicker than water," you know? And I hope that I, like, have demonstrated that for you as well.
The thing that I want to say, if I may, in front of the audience is that you're a grateful lover and you
Oh,
express appreciation every single time we have intimacy. At first, I was like, "That's okay, great, you're welcome," but now it's like, it really does help me to appreciate you, and it makes me want to be with you more, right?
yeah.
So, if we come from that grateful place, gratitude, I try to notice little things, I try to thank you for things even that you
Mhm.
should do. Thank you so much, Rich, for taking out the trash. Like, I appreciate that. Thank you for making dinner.
Yeah.
I really do try to say like,
Yeah.
thank yous go a long way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And I was just
radical
like, yeah, like the other day, it's like I could tell she was having a bad day. And, like, she was even being nice. It's just like, remember we were talking about expressing whatever you're at? She was in the storm, but she was, like, giving it with disclosure. She's
Mhm.
like, "I'm not mad at you. I'm just having a rough time. I'm really tired," and just like, "Rah," and it's just like, and she's just kinda just in that, like, a little bit of a she's having a moment, but I was like, I'm not gonna
Sick
take it
kids
personal. Yeah, sick
waking up
kids,
multiple
12-hour
times.
shifts. It's like, I understand where you're coming from, but it meant a lot to me that you were just like, "No, I'm not mad at you. I'm just like, just kinda prickly right now." And so I was thinking about it. I was tired too. I was so tired. But I was just like, "What are we doing today?" And I was like, "All right." And I decided I was gonna stop by and, like, surprise you at work with a tea and just stuff like that, and it really, like, it meant more to you than I thought it
It
would,
really did. It meant a lot.
but
It
these are
really
just,
did.
like, those little ways where it's just, like, you can also Like, so that would actually be actually, you're asking me about headship. That would be masculine headship right there, because she came to me with, I mean, frankly, kind of a bad attitude, although you had the self-awareness to say, like, "It's not about you. I love you. I love you. I'm having a really bad day." But headship in that situation was like, I am gonna completely ignore everything that she's expressing and go right to the need here, and just like, "You know what? I love you.
And caffeine was a need that
I
day.
love you."
Well, but
Let's
I think more than that,
but
it was
it's
just
just
like, I was also I was really in it because I always have a conversation with God. Hey, are we getting up? What are we doing tomorrow? What do you got on my docket? And he'll tell me, yeah,
mhm.
no, you're getting up. You're going to exercise tomorrow. I ask him what time I should set the alarm. He tells me.
It was early.
And it was really early. I was like, "Are you sure?" Because I was also up with the kids. "Can I make it?" And he's like, "Yeah, get up." And he was just like, "Just get up." And so, I really had to work that out with the Lord while I was at the gym. And but then when I came in and
When she went to work,
when
she
I went to work
went
and
to the gym, then went to work.
went to the gym, went to work, and you dropped the kids off and came and brought me a tea or asked me if I wanted a tea. And I don't know, it just
I
was
would've just
real.
got you one, but I wasn't sure or not if you wanted caffeine or something for your
Yeah.
throat.
Yeah. So, it's just those little things. It wasn't even a little thing to me, that was a really big thing. And that
Yeah,
was it's not that you don't do those you don't really do that type of thing. That was a surprise. And it was like, I really felt like not only was it from you, but it was also from God because I
fair
was
enough.
really praying. I was just like, Lord, like, I was up so much and like, I was getting like this frustration about that. And my husband's just sleeping away, like he doesn't hear this baby,
I
And
didn't.
I I'm up and I'm praying at night with the baby and giving her, a cloth and the vapor rub natural stuff, and it was just like,
I have some of the unnatural vapor rub hiding. It's like saved it. It's like, don't
but
steal it.
but but ultimately, like, I was just like, "Lord, like, you see me, and that's all that matters." And as, I'm driving, talking to him while I'm working out, I'm talking to
Talking to God, not
God,
me.
talking to God while I'm working out, talking to God while I'm driving my car to work, walk in. I felt good by then, actually.
Hmm,
I felt pretty good because I was like, you see me, you witness what I've done, you know what I'm willing to do for my family. And to even go to work is a service for my family, right? Because, man, if it was up to me, I would have just phoned it all in that day. And then to have my husband show up, it was like I coulda just cried because I was like, not only did God hear me, but you heard me too, and he sent
right.
you to come comfort me, and that was really,
Yeah,
really cool. Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome. And it's yeah, I guess there's people that'll go get coffee all the time, and it wouldn't make a difference, but that's not something that I would routinely do for
Mhm.
you. I don't know why. It was just that's what I felt like.
I get you coffee more probably.
Maybe,
Yeah,
yeah,
but
yeah,
in this case, like, he got me coffee, and that was very special
yeah,
because I think you were sent on behalf of God.
yeah. But but what I was saying is it's an example of headship because I'm helping, I'm resetting. I'm not responding to what's happening. Well, she was kind of rude to me, so I'll just be really kind of rude to her. Or she was this, or she was kind of unavailable to me emotionally because she's just dealing with her own stuff. So I'll just be huffy and throw a tantrum like a child. And it's like, no, like, and it wasn't even conscious. It's not like it was like time to deploy headship. It was just kind of like, hmm, okay. I'm not going to emotionally react and feel insecure or angry at her, whatever she would say to me. I'm not going to go into offense about that. Like I'm going to set the tone, and I'm going to respond how I want. And it was just like, okay, well, it's not really about me or something that I did. It's just she's just having a bad day. It's like, well, hey, if she's having a bad day and like she really shows up a lot for me, like maybe I should just do something for her to show her I care about her. And in that way, you can kind of cut through a lot of these like layers of things that are happening. and kind of get through all that kind of like that storminess and get right through and talk to that real person that's, it needs a little bit of affection.
Amen. I love that.
Headship.
Headship. Let's talk about boundaries. This is a nice
Okay, sure.
subject. Healthy marriages are not boundary free. They are boundary protected. Healthy couples protect their marriage from emotional affairs, secrecy, digital distractions, overwork, outside voices that undermine the covenant. Boundaries actually protect the emotional safety of the relationship. Let's break that one down.
Okay.
Do you agree?
Yes, I think that there comes a point when you're very secure in your relationship that you can almost like play with boundaries too. Like one of the things of flirtation is to kind of intentionally break a boundary that you would have in like normal society. And all of a sudden you could take like an everyday situation into an intimate situation. So there's ways that like when I'm like pursuing you, that I will almost like play with boundaries and almost like make like kind of just like inside jokes with like little boundaries.
Like pull my toes,
Just stuff like that, or just things that you might
touch my feet.
yeah, you don't like it. Like, that's just now you gotta. I don't particularly like it either. I don't like it or not like it. It's just something that just kinda ruffle your feathers. But I mean, even just like yeah, we're like, okay, we're going grocery shopping, which honestly, we don't have time to do a lot together. So we'd be grocery shopping or something, and I'll just act like I'm just another customer, but I'm just like just a little bit too close to you.
Mhm.
It's like, "Hey, I was just looking for this." Like,
Reach over it.
yeah, just kind of like get into your space a little bit. So I
Yeah.
think there's also a way that you can use boundaries as not just to like be a bulldozer and plow through them, but um, kind of play with boundaries a little bit and kind of spice things up.
Yeah. Well, and then there's also just boundaries of what we like. I can't remember if we discussed this on another episode, but just creating just rules of engagement with each other. And this started from when we first started dating each other, which is we don't make negative comments about each other's bodies, not even in a joke, right? And we created this way of
Mm-hmm.
just like, hey, we're going to speak positivity into each other, we're going to
Yeah.
encourage each other.
Don't throw each other under the bus, especially not in public.
Yes.
Because you can get kind of insecure or nervous sometimes in a social situation. And it's kind of people will go into self-deprecating humor, but
Yeah.
one of the ways that you'll sometimes see married couples get into self-deprecating humor is to self-deprecate their other half to kind of like take the heat off them a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, well, my husband never remembers. And it's like, well, my wife, the old ball and chain. And it's like, we've seen this before in social situations where we've just been uncomfortable. And it's
Yeah.
like,
I think we shared that in another
yeah, your husband's a
episode.
lovely man, and like, you should honor him. And your
Yeah.
wife is a beautiful lady. Like, she's not a ball and chain. And like,
Yeah.
maybe go home and work it out.
One I will say one of the terminologies that I really don't like when men use when they describe that their wife is their old lady.
The old lady.
"Ah, yeah, my old lady."
Yeah.
And I'm just like, "Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I don't like this."
Yeah. So I'd say that's a boundaries thing.
But then there's a boundary that you create around your marriage and your family with emotional affairs. Like, for example, we don't go out to dinners or anything with members of the opposite sex.
Yeah. Yeah. I was really clear with that. Like, I've always been kind of an interesting, kind of passionate, like, man. And people would find that just kind of intriguing. And I was just like, I was very upfront with you. It's just like, listen, I don't care about other like I don't care about somebody's like life in that sense that I'm gonna go like have coffee with like a female friend. It's like if I'm having coffee with somebody, it's like either we're like interested in the same things or I'm interested in them in a way that's untoward. You know what I mean? And so just was very clear upfront. Like it's just like I go out with you
Mhm.
when we were dating because I have intentions,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I'm not gonna like blow smoke and be like, oh yeah,
Well, it's hard.
we're just friends.
It's sometimes difficult because I'm a physician and there's a lot of male doctors, and then you'll be like at conferences or you'll be at these things and people are going out. But what I typically do is just it's a group, we go out with other colleagues. We, keep it professional, but I wouldn't
Mm-mm.
I wouldn't necessarily be one-on-one with those people.
And I appreciate that
Yeah.
because even if you're just like, yeah, there's a professional contact, it's
It
just
was
like,
something where I had to
I think there was some kind of
Actually,
pharmacy rep or
yeah,
something.
I
I don't
had
know
to
who it
actually
was.
email them and say, "Hey, that would be totally fine as long as my husband is coming as well," you know? And I
I
think
forget what happened
I
with
can't
that.
remember, there was something where I had to express a boundary, but and not that I felt like the person was being that way, I just was like, "No, we, as in Richard and I, have a agreement that we don't do that. We just don't do it."
Yeah.
Like, if there's, something that comes up, there's gotta be another person there as well. Can't just be, like, me and some guy or you and some girl.
And I think so let's talk about this. Like, there is human weakness, and then there's also intentionally putting yourself in a position where that something's gonna happen or somebody's gonna exploit a weakness. And there's this way that when you're in a good marriage, a lot of your problems just get solved. You know, if in your single life you were financially irresponsible, chances are you married somebody that balances that out. And so now you own a house. If you
The house.
had trouble, if you had trouble getting out and finding adventure, like all of a sudden you marry somebody and that part of your life is kind of solved. And now you're this interesting person that's like, yeah, I'm whatever, doing CrossFit now and I climbed a mountain and
I climbed. We should do it again. The problem is we had children
oh yeah.
and they
No.
lost.
Well, maybe they need to. No, but the point is though, is that it's really easy for some kind of Johnny come lately or some girl to see me or see my wife in what we have become with each other and just be like, well, that looks pretty great. I'm just going to take advantage of that. And it's like, well, that's not really fair because the truth is you and I have been sewing into each other for almost 10 years. And so, of course, somebody's going to see that and be like, wow. And it's like, yeah, because guess what? We were talking about countries, is it's like, well, who wouldn't want a doctor to move into their country? You know what I mean? So now I have the benefit of all of that, kind of like inside of my land and kind of like that is going to have an impact on, say, my nation's GDP. And, likewise, if you're in a country that is like, oh, wow, you want to be a doctor? How about we just build you a clinic and you just kind of move into it? Right?
Good country.
It's going to be a good country for you and you're going to get a lot further than you would otherwise. And I don't mean I'm not taking credit for what you've done. I'm just saying there's a difference between being in North Korea where it's just like, hey, guess what? We're all going to starve to death. And well, right this way, ma'am. We've got this new program where we're whatever. It's not the point. Anyway, and I think that when you see that, somebody trying to move in or whatever and just kind of like, yeah, we're going to get drinks. This is great. This is fun. We're all just friends hanging out. It's like, that person hasn't worked for anything
Right.
in that relationship.
And that can lead to even emotional affairs, even if there's
Yeah.
nothing physical happening on
Yeah.
there. You're giving that person as your confidant. It's just like when I don't know. I shared this actually at my Bible study the other day. I was like, I don't know what it is. I think it's Jesus. I'm not sure. But people just walk up to me and tell me everything. They don't know that I'm a doctor. I mean, this will happen if I'm on a plane wearing a non-terrain wellness sweatshirt, wearing a hoodie. And if they'll sit next to me, it's like all of a sudden they're gonna tell me everything. And I'm like, on one hand, maybe it's just easier to tell a stranger something,
That's kind of what I'm getting at.
but on another hand, that someone should be your spouse. Like that
Hmm.
should be your husband or your wife. And that is who I tell things to. It's like, I forgot to tell you this. And when people tell me stuff, aside from patient confidentiality things, but friends or something, good friends of ours, I'll be like, I'm going to tell Rich about this, right? And they're like, yes, I expect that you will, right? But that's it. It's just because we don't keep secrets like that.
Yeah.
Surprises, that's fine. That's like, you know,
Yeah.
a
There's a
good
difference between you
present.
got me something for my birthday
Yes,
and who's texting you.
correct.
That's not the same thing.
Somebody
I would
trying to
say,
give me a loan.
who is chocolate cake? And no.
Which goes with
And you're
digital
going to,
distractions,
yeah,
right?
no.
And
Yeah.
what is on your Instagram? What are you scrolling at? What are you looking
Mhm.
at? We talked about what was it? What did you call it in the other episode?
I don't know.
What women do when they're like looking at the
Lifestyle
lifestyle
pornography.
porn. That's what it was.
Yeah, it's
And
just
it's
like,
like,
"Oh, wow,
yeah.
they've got a
But that
boat.
being
They went
said,
to Hawaii."
your husband's social media could have, exercise models on there and things like
Some of
that.
that can really start to
It
blur
can
the line.
really blur the line. So let's
Yeah.
be careful about that. But the distractions, this
Even
is,
some of the advertisements lately, there's
whew,
all these, like people think I think it's because 'cause I'm in my 40s, all of a sudden I get all the, "Oh, well, he's using this one pill to spice things up," and it's of course, they've got all these, like, kind of women and stuff on these ads. Um, it's just sometimes I'm just like, "I'm trying to look up a thread pitch." Like, I didn't ask for this.
but we have that overwork can be definitely a boundary buster. Work can be a boundary buster for sure.
Oh, yeah.
And then outside voices that undermine the covenant. Well, I mean, is your husband really good? It's like you want to be surrounded by people who are encouraging your marriage, speaking into your marriage,
Here's a litmus
praying for your
test.
marriage.
Here's a litmus test. If the person that is, like, critiquing your marriage, do they have a good marriage?
But even if you have a good marriage, you're not going to go critique somebody's marriage. You might ask some questions. Like
No, but that's what
say,
I mean. But
yeah.
that's your sign is, like, there's a lot of people that have, and men and women will have friends that do this, like the guy that's, like, he's married now and his single buddies are like, "How come you never come to the bar anymore? This sucks. Your wife sucks." And it's
Mhm.
just like, "Deal with it, guys. I don't want your life." And so look at the person's life and look at their outcome of their life. And if you want their outcome,
They do.
do what they do. And so it's like, okay, so the person, well, your husband this or your husband that. It's just like, is this woman who's giving you that kind of critique, is she really happy in her own skin? Is she this? Is she that? And probably not. Are the men that are saying, well, you need to come out to the bar and drink on a Tuesday night all the time with us like you were 20 or 21, whatever. And it's like, do you really want their life?
Yeah.
And it's like, if you hang out with single men and you're a single man, you're going to end up single. And if you take advice as a woman, if you take advice from women that are unhappy with their relationships or how their relationships are going, you too will be,
Yep.
you will get that.
So, giving you a little bit of research here, one of the strongest predictors of marital success, according to the research from the Gottman Institute, they've had 30 plus years of research where they literally take couples and put them in these houses that they have to live in and have cameras and observe how they fight, how they make up, just everything about their marriage. And the biggest predictor of the success of a marriage was friendship, that spouses should become each other's friends. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay.
You agree?
Sure. I mean, it seems kind of trite, but okay,
Yes.
go on.
So we should be each other's safest confidant, emotional ally, trusted partner. The goal is not just simply I got to get through this, I'm coexisting, but the goal is to become best friends who build a life together. Thought that was so weird growing up to hear people say, "Well, I just married my best friend." I just thought that was so weird, and I think it's because I came from divorce. Like, I just saw the other part. I saw the coexist part. I saw the fighting. I saw the downside of that, and
I
so I
think
was
there's
like,
this
"That's
way.
weird."
Yeah. Like, I guess the one thing about kind of like, oh, just marry your best friend is like the friend zone, like the friend trap.
I thought about that too.
I was like, that's like part of something that gives me pause because like we all know somebody, not us, of course, just asking for a friend, right? Somebody that kind of pursued something that they thought was going to lead to a romantic relationship and it just never really did. And so I would say that from the beginning, just be clear about your intentions. Like the friendship will build if you have common values, not necessarily common interests all the time. It's like there's girls that like the type of interests and hobbies that I like, but I don't really share values with them. And
Yeah.
so it's like, I
I
think
didn't get
values
that
would be,
at first,
yeah,
especially growing up when I was
yeah.
younger. I used to try to find people where
I like race cars. She likes race cars. This is
this
perfect.
is great. We love
Yeah.
skiing together.
Yeah. We ski together. This is
It's not
awesome.
that those things aren't bad. I think those are just like the icing on the cake.
I would say values would be
The
more important.
values is really the
Yeah.
important thing to do. And then honoring family without repeating patterns. I love this. Marriage brings two family histories together.
It brings 2 family histories.
Yeah. Every person carries generational patterns. I would say generational curses, communication styles, beliefs about conflict, beliefs about love. Part of building a healthy marriage is recognizing these patterns. I agree. And we have had to work out a lot of those things. You know, you bring in many things into your marriage. Well, this is the way I did it growing up. Well, this is the way I did it. And even if you had a good, what you would consider a good upbringing, it's still different than how somebody else was
Well,
raised.
that gets into the kind of the social contract
Mm.
that I was talking about in a marriage, and there is gonna have to be some give and take on that, and redress of grievances and all the kind of things that you would expect. And so it's like, I guess, yeah, there's gonna be a lot of sorting out of that. But it's weird that sometimes even people will defend things that are bad, even just because they're familiar.
Yep.
Well, this is the way we always did it. It's just like,
Wow.
what's the outcome of that?
Yeah. What's the fruit of it? It's
Yeah,
always like,
it's just like
is this
divorced
for
alcoholics. Like
this isn't the
maybe I
way
don't
we
want
want to
that.
go.
Yeah,
So I used to say, hey, listen, if you want to get to a different house, you got to drive up a different driveway. There's just no way around it. You can't just keep driving up the same driveway expecting to get to a different location. So the first step
it's
is to
true.
become aware. Okay, yeah, this might be the way that it's always been done, but actively seek that it be different in how, and then bring yourself to a place of humility around that. Hey, listen, I don't know. I didn't learn this. I'm just, I am in a totally different place. I don't know how to do this. And we've had that in our marriage. I was like, I don't know how to navigate this. I never
Do
learned
you want to know
this
how to do it?
skill.
Do you want a formula?
Like, you're going to give me one and I'm going to listen.
Take a time when someone is doing something that under the contractual obligations or agreements of your family means that you have the right to either retaliate or respond in a negative way, and honestly just kind of just take it on the chin and just be like, I love you and that's not my intention here, and just completely derail it.
Okay, give me an example of that.
Okay, I'll pick on myself. There was a time that you and I had gotten into an argument about something. You, like, left, went to work, and, like, I was just kinda, like, later on just kinda pacing around and stewing, and, like, of course, I thought of something else, and I was like, "Well, you didn't think of this," and so, like, I texted it to you or something, and, like, whatever, and then, of course, like, 1 text turns into 5, and you look at your phone after, like, a whole day at work, and you're just like, "Where are all these angry texts from my beloved husband?"
I don't think
And
we were married at this point.
I don't know, maybe, but you had a chance to, like, kinda, like, just come at me, you know what I mean? And we were already in an argument and whatever, and you actually were like, "You know what? I love you, and I'm not gonna respond like this, and I'm not gonna respond this way, and, like, I don't really can't have you, like, texting me and stuff like that when we're in the middle of a heated discussion, and it's just like, I wanna respect how you feel, and I wanna listen to you, but, like, this is just a bridge too far." And, like, you didn't escalate, you actually kinda de-escalated and whatever, and at that point, I wasn't in the middle of argument. Now I was the one that was kind of encroaching on somebody that was demonstrating good faith when maybe I wasn't demonstrating good faith. And there's nothing that would make me kind of rethink my entire, like, strategy and position in that disagreement than just like, well, I'm sending her angry texts when she's just trying to work, and she's actually responding with compassion
Mm.
and just like, hey, I know you're hurt. I know you're upset with me, and I'm sorry about that. We just got to have some ground rules in how we communicate.
Yeah.
And so that kind of thing automatically is just like, now every time I'm like, I'm going to tell her the rest of the thing I didn't think of when we were arguing. Every time I've got to think about that, it's like, later on, am I going to be the bad guy?
Mm.
Because I was sending an angry text and she's responding it with compassion. And so I would say, just like the when I brought you a cup of tea, not that but you weren't actively like upset with me,
Mm.
but you were a little prickly. Like, it wasn't like my beloved wife waking up as a just a beautiful, like, Garden of Eden, like, flower, like, here, it's like, here she is. But I was speaking into what could be and what was not in that moment, what was not visible in that moment.
That's
And
it.
then all of a sudden that became visible. And so when you kind of spoke into me, you know,
Then we broke off a pattern.
then all of a sudden it was just like, well, well, that ain't cool. And there's ways that I've done that with you as well, where it
Mhm.
was just like, remember when you were pregnant and you were like,
Mhm.
she
Yeah.
tried to start an argument and the fridge smelled and just everything was terrible and like whatever. And finally I just kind of like stopped and it was just like, here we go. We're getting in a fight. And I was like, I don't know what I asked, but I just kind of paused for a second. Because for a second I was like ramping up. I was like, I guess we're getting in an argument. And then all of a sudden it just got so strange that I was just kind of confused. And I just like looked at you and I was like, hey, I love you. And then you just like burst into tears, or I don't know what I said, but it was just kind of like, are you okay?
There. No, it was not
And then
okay.
all of a sudden it went from a time of like, well, here goes, we're just going to argue right here before dinner, to like you and I having a moment of like, me having compassion for you and us having a tender moment. And then we embraced and like you were crying and I was holding you. And it was actually like a really like a very tender moment.
That was also like very stressful time. Well, pregnancy's already stressful,
Yeah.
right? But then we were just built the
But,
clinic.
but that's the cheat
It
code.
was just a lot.
That is how you break through those deep, deep patterns, is basically you have to completely, you take all the risk. If you're the person and your spouse is like kind of coming at you in that way, or just something, you have to take all the risk and just basically, if they're cursing you, you have to bless them back. And then all of a sudden they're just like, I'm in the middle of a fight and she made my favorite dinner. I need to rethink my entire life. What am I doing?
I was actually just gonna say that. Well, I think the other cheat code is pray.
Yes.
Literally in the middle of the argument as it's coming in, just ask the Lord to help you.
Yeah.
I say that with a giggle,
Well,
but it's true. I do it
yeah.
all the time. It's like, help me to be a better wife to him, even if I'm really annoyed right now. What does he need?
Why would you be annoyed with me?
What does he need? If
But
I
that's getting at that same
But
thing.
yeah, but if I wait for the prompting of God, he's very clear. He'll tell me what to do. Just, you know what? Ask him what kind of eggs he wants. Make him some toast, like whatever it is.
But it's like nothing disarms the other person faster than speaking past the offense. That's actually a Bible verse. It's of the king's glory to overlook an offense. So if your wife, your husband is like has done something to offend you or whatever, kind of speaking past that is a way to just really speak life into them and to call them to something better.
Well, also a reminder that you don't want to make your spouse your emotional punching bag either, where it's just the complaint department all the time and the you can't do anything right. And, when in the past I have been that when I get really stressed, we are in a very stressful season right now. And I think we're
Uh,
handling it differently. We had some moments this morning, but I think our ability to resolve has been it's
oh,
just
10x.
10,
10,
20x.
yeah,
I mean,
20.
it's just been so much better. But we've also had to have people step into our lives and coach us and help guide us through some seasons to learn some new skills, and they were helpful.
Actually, I was very surprised because I kinda came at you this morning with a little bit of, like, kinda some, "Here's a nice hot cup of the truth, deal with it." And I wasn't trying to be mean about it, but we'd been kinda just going back and forth, and just, like, at some point, it just kinda became, like, just, we just gotta rip this Band-Aid off, and you weren't quite ready for that, and then, like, about half hour, 45 minutes later, we talked about it, and I was like, "Alright, here goes round 2." And you actually came to me a transformed person, and we were actually having an intelligent conversation about the issues, and you're like, well, hey, listen, I know you want that, but if you really want this, like, this is what we might need over here. And all of a sudden it was just like, oh, this isn't an argument, this is a planning, this is a strategy meeting. And like, to be honest, we've needed it, we
Yeah,
needed to get some strategy on these issues. And like, I was actually really impressed by you this morning.
thank you. One of the things we did a marriage coaching program last year, and it's called Marriage Team. It's a ministry, very good, and we got coached by a couple that's been married over 30 years. Shout out to our couple. And we just really, one of the things they taught me about our relationship was that we work better if we have a common goal. So if it's us against a common goal to do something, like we're very good at projects. And so I've taken that and I've thought, well, how do I make this a project that we could team up and use our skills to that it's us against the world instead of me trying to figure it out or him trying to figure it out. It's like, how do we get on the same page and start using both of our energy to move this forward? So, anyway,
Yeah. Yeah, actually, I was impressed with how quickly, like, you switched over from, like, "Well, I don't like this," to, like, "Well, how do we solve this?" I was like, "Okay, yeah, let's solve it."
well, and I also you received me when I was like, "Hey, I cannot be bombarded with that many things in a row, like one thing at a time, and I can talk through this and we can make that plan, but we got to do that a different way."
That's fine, yeah. Well, to me, that's just like, let's just acknowledge that to say there's 10 issues, what can we solve in the next few days? What can we solve in the next few months? And what are we gonna have to shelve and look at again in 6 months? But that's at least addressing it. Like, it's not like it's something it's just like, "All right, if we get A, B, and C, then we can get D, E, F later on."
That's absolutely true. And we
So,
did come to that.
yeah, I mean, but to me, that's actually at least somewhat addressing D, E, and F as things that exist in the world rather than just like, "Oh, I can't see this, it doesn't exist, and I'm just ignoring it."
Marriage is not just emotional and relational, it's also spiritual. And this is actually what we're touching on is that a healthy marriage is going to require humility, it's going to require forgiveness, it's going to require repentance and grace and repeat.
Well, yeah. And those things as far as, when we look at it, like, when Jesus tells people, it's like when somebody slaps you, turn the other cheek. I mean, this is kind of that in action, what we were talking about with those kind of like the cheat code for breaking self-destructive patterns in relationships.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, honestly, it's like if you're being unfair to me, it's like to just kind of step out of that argument and treat you in a way as if you were not being unfair to me. And then all of a sudden, it's just like you can at that point self-correct. It's like just imagine walking into a room and everybody's like having a great time and you're just kind of shouting and everybody's like, "Oh, you know what? I love you too." And you're just like, "Well, you didn't this." And everybody's just like, "You know what? We just appreciate your just great sense of humor." It's like pretty soon the guy yelling is just going to be like, "I'm the only one that's mad."
Yes. And without the humility and the grace and all of those things, it basically just leads to resentment. And
Mhm.
we see that. And then
Well,
guess
and
what?
spiraling.
And then that spirals in. Resentment is just anger that's pushed down further.
Mhm.
And so that puts you in a place of unforgiveness and that puts you in a place of torment, honestly.
Yeah.
You'll just be tormented. You'll have a chip on your shoulder. You'll never really see the person for who they are.
Mhm.
And it's an ugly, ugly place to be.
I think there's a sidebar with that. There's also times to and this is an art that this is something I didn't come with because, like, when I notice something, it's just like it's gonna bother me until we talk about it. There is kind of this thing where as far as, like, offense and things like that in marriage, there is a time to kind of, like, set it aside for now. Don't set it aside forever because that's resentment, but I think there's a way where, if you were kind of in that mood or I can, just come to you, like, when I see you've kinda snapped out of it a little bit, I can come to you later and be like, "Hey, what happened this morning?" Or whatever. It's just like, you were you're just kinda upset, like, that's hard for me to be around sometimes. I feel like you don't like me anymore, or, like, I feel like that's just a hard way for me to wake up. And I think that when you're outside of that, then you can actually apologize and kind of self-reflect on that and receive it rather than in the moment. "Well, you're angry," and it's just like, "Well, it's your fault, and now we're in a fight," or whatever. And so I think there's a way to kind of get those needs met and be heard sometimes out of, like, the proximal event.
Yeah. And just remember, husbands, you're very annoying. You have very annoying habits, and
Some of
wives
them do.
and wives, you're very annoying, and you have very annoying
Yeah.
habits.
Yeah.
You
That's the
both
tough
have
part.
you're very annoying.
Yeah.
And I love my husband, but I do not have the same grace for other people's husbands. I'm like, well, that's your husband. You can deal with your husband. I've already got one to deal with. Like, we're, you know, happy we live in this country. It's like you can handle the cries of your own child, but when you hear the cries of another
Oh, yeah.
child, it's like, okay,
Yeah.
can you get that child?
Also, don't cherry pick other people's
Oh
relationships.
yeah,
You're
because
just like,
you're only seeing that part of it. You
"Excuse
don't
me."
know what goes on behind.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I mean. So it's kinda like, I think we can build this greatest hits and be like, "Well, if I was tall as that guy and I made as much money as that guy and I had the car that this other guy has and, like, whatever, and I had the house that this other guy has," and it's just like, yeah, you just did the greatest hits of, like, 5 really outstanding people. Yeah, who wouldn't want that, you know? Now you make $1,000,000 and you drive a Porsche and, like, whatever, and you
Mhm.
fly around in a jet all the time. I mean, like, great, who doesn't want that? But I think there's this way that we can judge our relationships by the greatest hits of a homologation of everybody that we see in our lives. And it's like, well, why isn't my husband 6'5" and making 600,000 a year, and we have like a boat and all this stuff and take exotic vacations? And it's like, well, pick one.
Paid off is coming.
Yeah, paid off the boat.
Okay,
It's a dinghy.
Ephesians 5:25. This is the amplified.
Sure.
Husbands, love your wives. Seek the highest good for her and surround her with a caring, unselfish love, just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. This is the model of sacrificial love. Christ died for the church, by the way.
That's true. He didn't just die for the church.
He lived for the church too.
He also lived for the church, but he also challenged the church. Like, he also said some hard truths to the church. Like, when we look at it, like, remember there was a Samaritan woman, not the Samaritan woman, but a different one, the Syro-Phoenician, and she was like, "Lord, come heal my daughter, come heal my daughter, she's demon possessed." And he's like, "Why should I give the children's bread to dogs?" And it's like, dude,
Because she
that's
was a
so harsh.
Gentile,
Yeah, she's a Gentile,
meaning not Jewish.
meaning not Jewish. And so it's like, well, hey, listen, like, why should I basically calling her and her daughter a dog? And she was like, you know what? Even the dogs get the crumbs that fall off the table. And Jesus was like, I don't need to go to your house. I don't even need to see your daughter. Your daughter is healed instantly. Go in peace with my full blessing. And it's just like, immediately it went there. And
Mm,
so, you know, Christ did give himself up for the church. Christ did die for the church, but he also challenged the church.
mm,
He also provided headship. He also told the hard truth sometimes.
mm.
And then sometimes he actually stood up for the church, like the woman that was caught in sin. And he was like, okay, well, I guess we're in a standoff. And he stood up for her when there was a whole group of people that wanted to stone that woman to death. So it's a little bit more complicated than just like, I am this servile doormat that is just constantly dying to myself and like sacrificing myself to the flames for my wife. It's like, I am dying to myself, but I'm also challenging, upholding, speaking life into.
I like this though. It says, "Seek the highest good for her."
Yeah,
The
this is an
high
interesting
yeah,
translation.
the
That's not
high
a normal
yeah, the
translation.
highest good, though, isn't always what
Free
she
stuff.
wants.
Yeah,
It's
free
what she
stuff.
needs, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
yeah.
What was your advice? You had marriage advice. Never.
What did I say? I don't remember.
My wife wrote a card. We were kind of talking and wrestling some of
Oh,
this
yeah.
stuff, and
We
she
said
wrote a
this on
card.
an episode, yeah, never
Yeah.
give her everything she wants.
Why is that? Because you're going to give her everything she wants, and then she'll be happy, right?
No, she'll be miserable.
And she'll hate you for it.
Yeah, seek the highest good for her and surround her with a caring, unselfish love. Okay, so marriage flourishes when couples commit to radical honesty, safety, covenant commitment, servant leadership, friendship, and trust. When the structure of marriage strengthens, intimacy often follows naturally. But marriage is transformational. It really is. We talked about that. You become something new. You are something new. Yes, you're you, but you're actually you improved because you get all the strengths of your husband, and your husband, you get all the strengths of your wives, and you should be working together for the mutual benefit, with the
Right.
benefit of the country.
Well, and that's just the thing is the reason that humans are organized into societies and family groups is because together we're more than we could be. It's not 1 plus 1 doesn't equal 2 in a marriage. 1 plus 1 equals 10 or 20 or 100. And so God is a God of multiplication and not addition.
Mhm.
And so there is an exponential increase in where your life can go, emotionally and as far as exploration of humanity in a marriage that you just can't get by yourself.
Yep. That's been our experience.
So, yeah, that's pretty cool.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us on episode 41. We will see you next time. Have a wonderful night or morning or whatever you're having. Bye.
Rain in the weird at the last second.